Once again, like, where is the view, bro? Like, he doing that crap again, man. I don't know where he at. Oh, here you go.
Yo, Specs, I know we got an interview with James Mobius today, but boy, I got a little situation back here, bro.
What, bro?
Man, I got a T-Rex behind me, bro.
What's in the background?
A T-Rex, man, like a dinosaur, bro. I know you hear it roaring behind me, bro.
Right. What?
Yeah, bro. I would love to be here, but I gotta deal with this right now, bro. It's crazy, bro.
What? Man, I already knew it, bro. All right, bro. I got it, bro. Go ahead and handle whatever you got going on, bro, because that sounds crazy as hell, bro.
Man, I hate this job, man. Yeah.
What's up, y'all, man? Welcome back to the hood. Just to come chill on the green box with Specs Thompson and the view. Once again, man, he's not here. Every time I do an interview, it just happens. Something happened this time, and apparently something happened down at the museum today. And I guess one of the villains he worked with took control of one of the dinosaurs on classic Batman antics going on with him, and he has to go down there, and deal with that situation. But welcome, James. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you. That's showbiz, as they say, right?
Yeah, man. That's me.
Dinosaurs, just one dinosaur can ruin your whole day.
I know, right? But yeah, introduce yourself. Tell people who you are, and a little about yourself, real quick.
I'm James Mobius. I am a comic book illustrator and writer, and musician, and a bunch of other stuff. I make a book called Punk Rock Alien Space Girl Adventures, which is a science fiction, action adventure, romantic comedy, musical story.
Okay.
And all the musical stories in it are true stories about all the crap that has happened to bands that I have been in the past. So it's semi-autobiographical.
Okay.
But I think people would rather look at drawings of a cute green-skinned, pointy-eared, pink-haired girl than an old Jew. So
hey, man, you never know, man. You never know. But yeah, I understand. But yeah, starting this show out, I got a series of segment of questions I do, so people know I'm getting to learn more about you as a person, as well as your works you do as well. My first segment is a series of icebreaker questions I call breaking it down, and you of course you probably did back when you're younger, set on the green box in front of your house or your neighborhood. Did y'all have those?
No, green. There are some gray boxes in my city, but they're green. Well, nowadays people paint them with like little murals.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yes. So the color may be different, but over here, they're a little bit lower. They kind of look like a bench type area. So we kind of sit on them, growing up, chit chat with your friends and break stuff down. So here I can do the same method, but instead of breaking stuff down, I'm gonna break your brain down so people get to know more about you.
Right, my brain broke down a long time ago, but okay.
Oh man. Maybe it's still something I can peel through a little bit. But my first question is, if you had to be an animal, what animal would you be?
I love that question. That's exactly the kind of question I always ask people. That one, I'm a member of a networking group of artists in Boston called the Boston Comics Roundtable, and we have a weekly meeting. It's online now. It used to be in person. Hopefully it will be again someday. And we always have an icebreaker question. And we take turns running the meeting, and I always will ask something like, what's your favorite color? Because everyone else is like, it's like, what's the most important thing in the universe to you? What kind of animal would you be is one of my favorite questions. Do I have I like sea turtles. I think they're really graceful and elegant, and they get to fly, but they're underwater at the same time. But really, a cat is the answer, because in my next life, I want to be a cat, because I'm going to need a 15-year nap after this one. And that's basically the deal you get. Sleep all day. You don't work. You don't pay rent. No taxes. Free food, room, health board, medical care. The outcome of political elections doesn't affect your lifestyle at all. Who's really in charge here? We clean up their poop,
Yeah. But what type of cat?
pampered house cat.
Okay.
I need short hair, so I don't end up with too many coughing up hairballs all the time.
Okay. Okay. All right. My next question.
Long hair.
And so I know you got so much going on with everything you do, but do you have a pretty good like work life balance, or is it everything real hectic in your life?
Work-life balance. Wow.
I don't have. I'll tell you this. I don't have one.
What does that even mean? I don't know, man. Um, yeah, I mean, for actual income producing work, I've done a lot of different stuff. Uh, I worked in a bakery when I was in college, and I was a chocolatier for a couple of years, which was a fun job, but the company was a little dysfunctional. So,
Was it Wonka?
alas, no, that would have been cool. And then I started. I went to electronic school. I went to music college, Berkeley, so a degree in music. Uh, it's tough to pay the rent with music, though. So I went to electronic school. I used to fix TV sets before they were flat. Now people just throw them out. So I learned to fix houses. So that's what I do for money. And I make my own hours, basically. I used to work for a small company, but I've been independent for a couple of decades now. People call me when they need me. It might be Saturday night at 11 o'clock. I get a phone call from some college kids whose landlord is my client. And they're like, our toilet isn't working. I'm like, okay, I'll be there in 15 minutes and I'll go fix it. Whatever. So, Monday morning, I don't have to set an alarm to be somewhere at 7 a.m. I just, I get around 8 or so. And look to see. I've got a long list of very patient clients who are happily waiting for me to fix small things in their houses here and there. I'm blessed that way. I can't imagine going back to a 9 to 5 and having to be somewhere. I've done that. I did that for a long time. But I'm like, I like the freedom because I can. Sometimes I work on all day, Saturday and Sunday or whatever, but on the other hand, I might just decide, Monday I'm going to draw all day. So I guess that's some kind of balance.
Yeah, I used to DJ pretty often. Just DJ, go to the club, come back, sleep all day and rinse and repeat. And I probably had 9 to 5 now for probably 5 to 6 years, and definitely trying to get out of it. That's why I'm doing podcasts and comic books and all kind of stuff, because it felt like it slowed me down, but it kind of didn't. But I blame it. It slowed me down. I still can work around it, but I don't know. But
sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
You good?
I feel like I was thinking about it the other day because I got a sister who's an artist, and she's a jewelry maker and a storyteller, and she's my hero. She supported herself doing that for like 30 or 40 years or something. But now it's slowing down a little. It's getting tough, especially with the pandemic, small business. So she's like studying some computer stuff and actually thinking about trying to do something else to make some money. And I started thinking, I just was toying with the idea. It's like, can you imagine working at Starbucks or something? No. God, that would suck. Because I'm really like getting old, feeling my mortality. I'll talk about that more later probably, but I'm just like, I got a lot of art I want to get done before I die. That's like my top goal, other than taking care of my family, my parents. So, I don't need opulence, a lot of money, just enough to get by. And I mean, a piece of paper and a pencil is all I need to entertain myself. We've got cable in this house. We've got like Netflix and all it's like 8,000 channels. I never look at it at all, ever. I watch some stuff on YouTube sometimes, but I just rather spend my time drawing or working on my music, which has been on the back burner for far too long. But I'm just really gung-ho working on this comic at the moment.
Yeah, I understand. And for my next question, for this to work out correctly, what was the name of the band? Yeah, Mojo.
Mojo Ceratops. Yeah.
Okay.
That's it's a real dinosaur. It was like a triceratops and had this kind of heart-shaped bony plate on its head. And these beer-drinking archaeologists discovered it, and they were like, "What are we going to call it?" And one of them jokingly suggested that, and then they said, "Yeah, let's do that." And so they did. And I saw a news story about it like the next day, and I'm like, "That's the new name of my band." And so I grabbed the MySpace domain for it. So great. And because my drummer hated the name we were using at the time, and he was like, "We need a better name." It was Super Gods, which I thought was good, ridiculous, over the top, egotistical name, because that's funny, because we are. I mean, people would call us all virtuosos, fusion, jazz, rock band, heavy metal, funk, fusion stuff. But we're actually very humble about it. So using a name that's full of braggadocio is hilarious, ironically. So, but he just didn't like it. He thought it was too. People would take it people would think we were taking ourselves seriously. We did musically, but not in any other way. Goofy song titles and whatnot. Where's it going? I have attention deficit disorder. I think I just lost my train of thought. The name of the band, right?
Yeah,
so,
but
we got
but
that.
would you? Cause my question was, what would be your favorite dinosaur? So was that your favorite dinosaur or no?
Well, I mean, that dinosaur hadn't been discovered when I was a kid, and I was like all kids, really into dinosaurs in the old days. And I think the Brontosaurus, which I guess doesn't exist anymore. I think they changed the name to Diplodocus or something.
They did. So I didn't know that.
Yeah, well, the first Brontosaur, I guess they had the wrong skull on it, and they did in a museum, and they didn't discover that for like decades. And then they were like, the Brontosaur as such didn't really exist. That was somebody else's head, which, I guess that would be kind of an ego-shattering thing if you're that dinosaur. Like, whose head am I wearing? Come on. This is me.
So they got rid of the Brontosaurus and they got rid of Pluto. Huh?
But yeah, really.
Man.
I mean, I like the scary ones with the big teeth and all, but I don't know. When I saw Jurassic Park, the first one, when it first came out, and there was like this serene scene of they're just watching the Brontosaurus at the beginning. What are they calling them? The long-necked herbivores, and they were like, oh, it was really peaceful. I'm like, I could just watch an hour of those mellow dinosaurs grazing on trees. It really
it used to be a TV show on the Discovery Channel back in the day. These had like, how you got the wildlife with like the zebras and stuff. They had like a digital form of the dinosaur just like that back in the day. It might be on Disney Plus now, but I know back in the day when I was in like middle school or early high school, it was on TV.
It's like the only channel I don't have, and that I would like to see it because I've never seen this Boba Fett series or any of that stuff. Like, it looks really good.
Yeah, the Mandalorian's the Mandalorian's out right now. People are I like it. I'm a Star Wars fan. I enjoy it, but people are complaining about season 3 right now. But all in all, like, I enjoy it. So
let me ask you a question. How old are you?
I'm 31.
31. Okay, so wait. Well, let me rephrase the question because I don't have to do any math. What year were you born?
91.
Okay, so you weren't around in 1977 when Star Wars came out.
Not quite.
I was at a movie theater that no longer exists called the Charles in Boston, watching a Pink Panther film, and there was a preview for Star Wars before it, and it just cracked my head in two. I was like, this movie is going to be the most amazing movie ever. If you weren't alive then, you really can't comprehend the magnitude of how much that movie changed the world, especially for fans of genre material, because the special effects were, like nothing since 2001 came out in 1968. That was a pretty mind-blowing film. That was like Jimi Hendrix, and then Star Wars was like Eddie Van Halen. It just like took it up technically anyway to another level. And wow. I was telling my friends in school about it because they hadn't seen the preview yet. I'm like, there's a movie called Star Wars going to be coming out. And there's like this robots and Monkey Man and all this stuff. And like seeing the scene where R2-D2 like falls over when the Jawas blast him, and like I didn't understand he was a cylinder. I thought he was shaped like a mailbox. So I made like a model of him from memory out of paper and tape, and like I got the shape wrong. But and then Heavy Metal magazine actually came out just about the same time, and that really also cracked my brain into, because there are all these European artists, and I realized comics don't have to look like Marvel and DC or Archie. They can look like airbrush paintings of Angus McKee, which are just incredible, or all these other artists working in different styles. So those two things were like a huge influence. But there hasn't been a cultural earth destroying asteroid event since 1977. Nothing has changed stuff. That now you take it for granted now that you get like movie quality special effects in your TV shows.
Yeah.
In fact, I mean, if you watch science fiction TV from 1977, it's like you could you could barely see the strings. You know, it's great. I love old Doctor Who. I'm actually in a. This is my TARDIS. I mean, I built one. It's my studio. My Doctor Who fans will recognize this curtain here and the window behind me. But,
oh, I see. Yeah.
Yeah. Still a big Doctor Who fan. But easier than building your own life-size Millennium Falcon. There's some dude in Texas, I think, dude. Anyway, sorry, what were you saying?
I know we were talking about dinosaurs, but hey, it's good. Yeah, but that, I mean,
one of those.
Hey, I mean, I got more questions, man. Everybody get a good feel, but that segment is over. That was the icebreakers. You know, we got some details real quick about some of the stuff about you. So hopefully people are intrigued to go further. And my next segment is called back issues. Of course, you're in comics, so you know all about back issues. If you want to know,
3,000 of them right behind this curtain.
But yeah, you know, like if you want to know about a character, you want to know about, you know, Wonder Man, since he got a TV show coming out, you go into his back issues to find more about his origin story. See, Wonder Man, see, you need to go in the old Avengers, you know, find more about him. But
there's a Wonder Man TV series in development.
I think it's already like post-production.
Wow.
But speaking of that, like I don't know how they're gonna do that with Vision already being there, but hey, who knows what not DC, Disney's gonna do.
Yeah, I haven't read the Avengers in a long time, since George Perez's run.
You're not missing anything. But we've been going into your back issues so people know more about your origin story. So
you want to know what's in these boxes?
So my first question is, where are you from and what do you call your hood?
Well, I grew up in a town called Brookline, Massachusetts, which is borders Boston. But it's got a reputation as a safer town than Boston has in general, which is statistically borne out. I mean, the murder rate last time I checked was like 1 every 10 years in Brookline. There's Boston is a little higher than that, probably. And when I was growing up, it was not super ethnically diverse, but it's definitely much, much more so now as compared to Boston. I mean, I went to some private Jewish schools when I was a kid, so those were, I don't want to say white, but because I'm a Jew, I don't consider myself white because my grandparents' generation were put into shtetls, which is German for ghettos. You know, we weren't white enough to not be murdered because we weren't white enough. So I don't want to be called white now, you know, if you get that. And I have relatives who are black and Asian. And I grew up with an older brother who's black, not my biological brother, but my brother's best friend who has known me all my life and was my other brother in all intents and purposes. Also my mentor in music and computers, world-class musician, high school dropout who went on to teach at MIT, a genius, you know, which is my grandfather's story too. He was a high school dropout. He was a professor at Rutgers and Yale. So my hood, yeah, that's my hood. I was actually shocked. I shouldn't have been, but a few years ago, my black brother was, when there, God, what was it? It was big. I guess it was after the George Floyd thing. Did a post on Facebook about having been hassled for, you know, walking while black in this town. I was like, I didn't know he kept that from us, that he was having a hard time, you know, being pink, you know. But so it was pretty idyllic childhood, aside from the fact that I hated the Jewish schools because I just was not into religion at all. You know, I just didn't buy it. I was drawing Spider-Man, and my teacher would come over and break my pencils in class.
Wow.
Because I wasn't paying attention, but I was, you know, getting better at drawing. So no regrets there. Yeah, that's my hood.
Okay.
I moved away. I moved to Japan for when I was like 26. I hadn't been anywhere. I mean, I'd driven around a little bit. I went to New York City a few times, and Cape Cod. That's about it. I went to Tokyo to English. I couldn't get that job, and I had a cultural prejudice against beards. I did find some work, but after 6 months, I couldn't get a work visa for what I was doing, so I moved to Boston a little after that. I love Boston. I mean, I love New York, but it's like Boston is like little New York. It's got all the same stuff, but on a more manageable scale. It's like I love to visit New York, but you know, we have like the Museum of Fine Arts here, and all this. I love old architecture. You know, people from it's coastal, so there's people from all over the world. You meet, you know, really diverse group of people we live with. I drove across this country. I drove from here all the way to mostly up north. It had been a life goal of mine to avoid places like Alabama, but I did end up driving through there.
Oh, see, I'm right next door. I'm in Georgia, so you know.
You know, I drove through there. It wasn't too bad. I did get harassed a little bit for long hair and dressing funny. But I lived in Japan. I drove all the way to Oregon and Vancouver a little bit. Very nice up there. Canada. People are friendly and give good directions. And they like our money. That was a long time ago. I'm thinking to here, you know, till the floodwaters rise, and that happens after I die.
What was your first comic or comic-related TV show that got you intrigued at doing comic books?
Well, TVs didn't get me interested in creating comic books. Although I remember watching a Spider-Man cartoon on a black and white TV because we didn't have a color TV, and this would have been like 1970, I guess. Man, I'm old. Holy cow, I'm old. Yeah, and I remember seeing Astro Boy and Gigantor and Kimba the White Lion and Speed Racer, and I didn't know that those were anime. Cartoons are cartoons, you know. And I found out, it's interesting later, when I lived in Japan, a friend of mine was telling me she grew up watching Tom and Jerry and had no idea that was not anime.
Wow.
Cartoon on TV. And yeah, I don't think they speak on that cartoon, do this. I didn't even think they had like a dubbing issue or anything.
Only the So
but
yeah.
I was reading comics from before I could probably read words, I guess. My father's father, my uncle had a cigar store in Cambridge, Mass, and sold comics. And his dad would bring us books, and he called them literature, which I thought was great. And he said, "Jamie, I brought you some literature." You know, he had this Russian Boston accent, and so I was reading, you know, what was it? Sugar and Spike and Archie comics and Six Gun Kid, Spider-Man and DC comics. So they were always in the house. My parents called them funny books.
Funny books.
Yeah. And I just always loved them. And Mad Magazine. And I was drawing comics. I'm sure I stole some jokes from Mad Magazine when I was drawing comics in like third grade. I can't remember what joke I stole, but I remember that I did. But I also was coming up with original characters, even back then. One of which I really want to bring into my comic now, because I think it would be cool to take something I came up with as a kid and use it.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah, I watched any superhero comic book related TV show that was on back then. There was a live action Spider-Man series that I thought was really good. Nicholas Hammond. They should have put him in that Spider-Man movie I haven't seen it yet, with all those other Spider-Man. They should have given him a cameo or something.
I think he's in the animated one.
Is he? Okay.
Yeah.
I'm behind in watching everything, but and oh god, the Batman and Robin TV series.
Oh, Adam
which I
West.
loved as a kid. I put on a yellow towel and it was Robin, you know. And my brother had this plastic Batman cowl. It was like a helmet, you know. Those things are worth like a fortune now. Man, I wish we still had it. Not that I'd sell it if we did, but so I was really into that. Wonder Woman, which piqued my teenage interest in different ways. God bless Linda Carter. Still an awesome lady, and still gorgeous. Anyway, yeah. So it was always around, man. Comics. Ooh. I still have some comics have an issue of The Many Ghosts of Dr. Graves, I think it's called, that I've had since I was, I don't know, 7 years old or something. It's my oldest book that I managed to hang on to.
Wow, that's a long time.
Charlton comic. They don't exist anymore.
But yeah, that's cool, man. All right, my next question. Now, what was your first time your first introduction to music that intrigued you to do music and enjoy music?
Oh boy. I grew up in a house with a piano, which I used to noodle around on a little as a kid. But my brother played guitar and piano by ear. My mother was a pianist. Her mother used to play harp when she was young, but we didn't have one in the house. They'd gotten rid of it before I was around. I don't know. I guess I always liked music. And my brothers started a band, and my black brother had this bass. And hang on.
Uh-oh.
It looked like this, except it was black. It was a Hagstrom, and I have a black one, just like this anyway. Really, I thought that one's only got 4 strings. I think that's going to be easier. I'm 6 years old. I want to play that one. Unfortunately, now I play this one, which has 6 strings. So much for that. But it was nice while it lasted. I still play the 4 strings sometimes. Yeah. Why did I get into music? What a great question. I don't know. I guess I always liked music. At some point, I guess my older brothers would just like turn me on to stuff. Earth, Wind, and Fire, the greatest R&B act of all time, Untoppable. Also Alice Cooper, about the same time. So very different. Heavy metal and funk are like my foundations as a musician. I don't see any reason not to mash them together. And people have been doing that for a long time, but I started doing it like right away. As soon as I learned how to slap, I was like, oh, can I slap this Kiss tune? I'm like, yeah, again. Okay, cool. That's better. So my own music, that's, it mixes that. And I like Celtic folk music a lot too. So kind of like to sort of
another tangent.
Squeeze some of that into that. There's only 2 kinds of music. Dizzy Gillespie, great jazz trumpet player, said in my graduation at Berkeley, he said, there's only 2 kinds of music: good music and bad music. If you like it, it's good. You didn't even have to finish the sentence.
Yeah.
You don't like it. Because never mind this bad stuff. Just enjoy what you like.
Yeah, all the good stuff only, huh?
And then, I turned, 1980, I guess. I was 15, and music in the early 80s got really interesting. I mean, there was a lot of great music produced in the 70s, but we had a thing happening. Young people have asked me, it's like, how come music was so good in the 80s and so diverse? You got all these different bands on the radio getting play. Really, I mean, you got Michael Jackson, you got the Thompson Twins, and there's a lot of glam metal happening concurrent with new wave, Gary Newman, and then groups like Big Country and U2 bring the Celtic punk thing in there, and Blondie and Talking Heads and Devo, all this stuff. I liked it all. And my answer was why was music so much more diverse and interesting in the 80s is because we were living under a constant threat of total global nuclear annihilation. And every day, we actually lived in fear of the end of the world. It was like a real day-to-day consideration when I was a teenager. You don't really have that to quite the same degree. There's plenty to worry about, especially with the pandemic and all. But, we had that people had that hanging over their heads. So they were like fearless. They were like, well, I could die tomorrow. I'm going to play this chord. I've never played it before. It's like the record companies were willing to take chances on anything in those days to see what would stick. The kids like this missing persons band with the singer is wearing, goldfish bowl bra, and the drummer's insane, brilliant. And so there's a lot of different stuff happening then. And then by the 90s, the Cold War ended. And music started getting a lot more homogenous, and the record companies started being a little more careful with how much money they were putting behind bands. And they kind of only wanted to sign your act if you already sounded like another act that was already successful. They didn't want to take a chance on different styles and stuff. And
they still like that now.
No, it hasn't improved. It's only gotten worse, more homogenous and safe. really. I mean, there's always great musicians coming up with original new stuff, but the better, more intriguing stuff doesn't tend to get played on the radio. MTV. What was that expression? 40 years of MTV. Thanks for 14 years of great music. I've seen that meme on the internet because they stopped just being a music channel. But I discovered a lot of great acts. I still listen to radio, but college radio. In Boston, we have a bunch of great college radio stations. No commercials. They have this, one of them says, "You're in the middle of another commercial-free decade." It's like, God, I love hearing that. Because I have zero tolerance for, I can't listen to ads. I like change the station. I sometimes listen to commercial radio, but I just like, I don't have time for that. I used to watch a lot of TV when I was a kid. I watched mostly sci-fi. And then we got video cassette recorders were invented, and we could tape shows, and you didn't have to be home at 8 o'clock to watch Star Trek. You could watch it later, and you could fast forward through the ads and save time. And I did a calculation. I realized at some point, if you watch one TV show for a year, that's 1 hour once a week, and you watch all the ads, you're spending 13 hours watching ads. I did the math. I'm like, you would not sit and watch 13 hours of ads, right?
Unless you're in the UK.
Yeah, right. Why do it a little bit at a time? So fast forward. So I'm taping shows and I'm not watching them. I'm taping them so I can watch them later. And over on a shelf over there, I've got a lot of tapes that I never watched. Star Trek. And I watched all the Doctor Who, but they didn't have ads anyway. So I don't know. I managed to kind of ease my way out of TV that way and free up more time for being a creator rather than a consumer of content, as they call it nowadays, or art, as I like to call it.
Okay. All right. When did you discover that you're a nerd?
Sorry, what? Nerd? What?
When did you discover that you're a nerd? Like, when did you realize you was different? You're like, oh, okay, my interests are different.
Yeah. No, I was always different, man. Because I was, when I was young, I didn't want long hair, but I see you also are a long hair fella. Yeah. But I hated haircuts. So the goal wasn't.
Same here. I hate them too. Like,
the goal was like, I don't want anyone snipping any part of my body off of me. Maybe it goes back to when I was 8 days old and somebody did that, but without asking me, I would have said no thanks. I mean, it's all fine, but consent is important. No, I was always different. I had attention deficit disorder, which no one knew what that was in the 70s. So it was undiagnosed, and they were like, "You're so smart. Why don't you do better in school?" I've heard this from a lot of people. You took an IQ test, and I'm like, "You're really smart. How come you don't do well in school?" I'm like, they couldn't keep my attention. And it was boring. I don't know. Also, the schools I was in were just extra boring. And when you go to Jewish private schools in America, you have to. There's a legal mandate. You have to spend X number of hours studying math and history and social studies. Same things kids in public school do. But then we had, another half a day every day of traditional Bible studies and boring stuff that I had zero interest in. And man, what a waste of time. Oh, then I come home and watch TV and eat ice cream, read my comics. But I was always different, got a funny last name and get made fun of. And it wasn't until high school when I found hippies, and by then I was one, and punks, who were my friends, that I found a nurturing environment to grow up in. I was blessed to go to a really good Brookline High School. It was a really good school, and we had this alternative education program where students had say. And like it was democracy, like we could vote on curriculum. And we fired a teacher because some female student made an accusation against him. And we actually allowed him to resign because nothing could be proved. We wanted him to be able to get another job. But this is a pretty radical situation for high school kids on a first name basis with our teachers. But it was great. And I discovered all kinds of more music there. And, that's when I really started drawing comics. At that point, I got into the new Teen Titans. It started in 1980. George Perez, the artist, who was like #1 artist every year, pretty much for the 80s. He got voted that, You're familiar with Perez?
Yeah, I am.
Yes. Yes. I actually got to know him a little bit because I was in a fan club and he was an honorary member. And I went to his house in New York and he bought us lunch and hung out, and I've talked to him at conventions a lot. He was such a nice. He was as nice as he was talented, and nobody was more talented or nice than George Perez. He was a huge influence on me. I loved the way he drew, particularly Starfire, my favorite superheroine. I don't know if that's a question for later, but I just fell in love with her, and like an unhealthy kind of obsession level. I'm like, I need to be able to draw her, but if it looks like he drew her, then it's really her. So I taught myself to do that by copying his work. But meantime, I also started, seeing how does he draw this character and that character, and look at the way he draws the hairs and the curl. It's the same, but on a different scale. And I learned a lot just by, I would copy like panels and then pages, note for note, so to speak. And it's the same approach to music. I would copy the works of bass players I really like, Stanley Clarke and Jaco Pastorius. Learn what the masters do, and then you filter it through your own head, and you come up with your own style that way. And that's my advice to young artists. I have a friend now, just made a new friend through my comic book group here in Boston, who's like, how do you draw? She's a real beginner as an artist. She's a writer. She wants to learn to draw, and I'm like, wow, okay. So I'm teaching her, so I'm giving her advice, which is really, I love teaching. I taught music. I haven't really taught art, but I started to write how to do comics book because I was reading one by a guy named Chris Hart. And even though some of the art by Gray Morrow in it was really good, some of it was really bad and made me angry. And I'm like, I can do a better book than this. So I started writing one, but then I gave up. And there's so many good books out there. I don't need to do that. I'd rather make my own comic book. But,
I mean, you could still did it though. It would, you never know. It could be a hit.
Yeah, well, I mean, I still haven't mastered anatomy yet, so I don't really feel like I'm in a position to make a how to draw a comics book until I feel like every hand and foot I draw is flawless, and I'm not there. I'm like, it looks like a hand. All right, good. I've lowered my standards a little because, like, Dave Stevens is like, other than George Perez, my favorite comic book artist, and pretty much. And if you say Dave Stevens was the greatest artist who ever drew comics, other than maybe Frank Frazetta, nobody in comics is going to say no, you're wrong. They're just not, because he was a realist. He was genius and so good. Whew. But I'll never be that good. That's okay. He was also very humble and modest. He was self-taught. No, he went to art school. That's right. But late in life, he started taking like a class. People are like, what are you doing? It's like, I want to get better. It's like, you better? You can't get better. You're the best. What are you talking about? Just make comics. You're like, oh, that's too much work. I'm just going to do other stuff. Covers. It's a shame because he produced very little. He did The Rocketeer. He didn't do a lot of comics. It's a pain in the ass. Drawing sequential storytelling it's a lot of work. It's a lot easier just to do pinups, and they're more fun. But I spent a lot of time doing that and portrait work, which was very useful training for comics. Spent a few years doing a lot of that, realistic portraiture. But I got stories I want to tell. And I try not to be too hard on myself when it's not perfect. I spent a long time thinking I'm not good enough to do this. And looking at other beginners and people self-publishing and even professionals whose work I thought could have been better, to be polite. It was kind of an elitist attitude that I had. I'm like, you're not ready. Why are you publishing? Get better. Yeah, I'm not going to publish till I get better. And I'm like, but I used to read this comic called Gen 13 that came out in the 90s. Jeff Scott Campbell is the artist. He was heavily influenced by Jim Lee. He was one of the early Jim Lee Youngbloods, and Disney, with big eyes. And there was a lot of hype about it. And I looked at the first issue and I'm like, what's all the hype? This guy sucks, But then I looked at issue 3 and I figured something out. He had blossomed. He had solved all his problems. His anatomy was still fantastical and stylized, but cohesive and consistent. And it was beautiful. And it was definitely, within his style, it just gelled. It came together. Everything came together. By the 3rd issue, it was really good. And I started reading it. It was really good and beautiful. And after a while, I started to think, I'm kind of reading this book now for the same reason that I'm reading Penthouse comics, but without the payoff. So I stopped. But then I started reading again because somebody had written in, they made this character Rainmaker bisexual. And believe it or not, back then, this was controversial to have a female character who was openly not straight. And someone wrote in a letter, it's like, I can't believe you did that. I'm never reading your comics again.
Wow.
screw that guy. I'm going to start reading this book again. And I fell back in love with it. And I picked up the few issues that I missed. And I kept reading it until DC bought Wildstorm from Image. And they started, they killed it, literally. I mean, they killed the book and they killed all the characters in a pretty brutal way. And then they brought them back, but they were clones. And I'm like, oh, screw you, DC. Oh, they ruined my other favorite book. But I saw that. Then there's a one of my favorite younger artists, like his name, Phil Jimenez, who you might know, DC artist, did a lot of Wonder Woman. He started out on a Teen Titans spin-off book called Team Titans. He started off being a George Perez clone, and a really good one. I mean, it's like, man, he's trying to do everything just like George. But he wasn't quite there. In his first published books, he had a problem. He was drawing craniums kind of a little too small, and his anatomy wasn't 100%. But, and I was like, oh, he has so much potential. I hope he gets good. And within like 3 issues, he'd solved all his anatomy problems. And he was like a star ace, MF, brilliant artist, really good. And George Perez took him under his wing. He wasn't like, this guy's copying me. He was like, oh, good. Someone is like learning my lessons, you know, trying to draw really good. But he's evolved in his own style. Lately, his stuff looks more like Neil Adams has been a big influence on him recently. That's okay. I kind of liked it a little before he went that way, but it's cool. I'm sure it's going to continue to evolve. He's a very nice guy. I've gotten to talk to him in person a few times. World-class artist, absolutely brilliant, and really, really a sweetheart too, just like George was. But again, 3 issues, it got good. And at some point, I started working on my book, and I guess I felt like, oh, I'm good enough to let's do this thing, you know. Looking back from when I did my 3rd issue, I started it, and looking back on the first one, cringing at the art as not being as good as it was I realized, oh, look at that. Here's my 3rd issue. I'm pretty good now. I mean, I'm still not satisfied. I drew a face 2 weeks ago, and I inked it, and I was coloring it. I'm like, I finished it. I'm like, her jaw is too big. God, it's just like, it has got to be cute. It's really important that this, you know, it's a big face close up, and she's giving like a motivational speech to the reader, which you find out on the next page is really to her cat. But it's a flip trick, you know. But I was like, okay. So I spent like an hour in Photoshop, you know, making the jaws a little smaller until it was just right. But I don't do that too much now. I'm generally, I draw in pencil first, and I do this trick that I recommend everyone do, which is to flip your art over. If you have a light table, it's really good. If you're working digitally, it's easy to do. Because when you look at it backwards, you can see errors that you just can't see. There's a thing I call the slope, which is that you see young artists, when they draw a head, it's an oval. Where's my hand? But it tends to lean that way, which is the angle at which we write. If you write in cursive, it's like a slash from the lower left to the upper right. That's that motion that our hands make for, you know, the first 10 years of your life. You're in school, you're writing all the time, you're always making this stroke, lower left to upper right. When you draw a head, you draw a circle, an oval, it has that slant. I think my camera is mirrored anyway. And I see that. I see it in my old art. I see it in young artists. I see it in professional artists. It can be pretty subtle, but if you look at it in the mirror, suddenly, for some reason, it pops out at you. It's like if you see a picture of yourself, it doesn't look like you because you see yourself in the mirror every day, right? And no one's face is perfectly symmetrical. So you're used to seeing your face a certain way. And you look at a photo and you might think, oh, that doesn't look like me, does it? I think that's less of I don't think that's as much of a thing nowadays as it was when I was growing up, because when I was a kid, we didn't have digital cameras. Every time you press click on your camera, you were spending 36 cents at CVS to develop that picture. And you hoped it came out good. So you didn't take so many pictures. Now you got a digital camera. Now you got a phone. I've got 10,000 photos in here. If they don't look good, you throw them out. You know, you take 27 photos of your friend until you get a good one. So we're much more used to seeing our face as it is, not in reflection. But nonetheless, I still see people doing this slope thing. And I always tell them, just look at your work in a mirror. And they go, wow, you're right. And I've heard that from like professional artist Michael Whelan, who was like the king of science fiction fantasy book cover art in the 80s. And he's still cranking it out. I'm glad to see he's on Facebook now. And I can follow him. He told me that at a lecture, but I'd already kind of figured it out, because I was looking at Oh, it's right up there too. This album cover, which is a portrait of the musician, and it looks really great. And I happened to catch it in the mirror one day. I'm like, that looks weird. I guess, okay, well, this proves that the artist did not trace a photo to make that painting of his Gene Simmons first solo album. Very great artist, beautiful airbrush painting. And it still looks good, but I look at it in the mirror and it's like, it's got this slight sneer to it, just a little weird. And, but I figure if you flip your art over, if it looks good backwards, it's going to look good forwards to you later. So that's like, I think it's like my most important advice to young artists is to flip your art over. Check your symmetry. Yeah. I didn't come up with it, but I kind of did on my own. Anyway.
Yeah. Well.
What were we talking about? TV show, comics?
Yeah. Man, it's all good, man.
I can ramble a little. Sorry.
It's all right. So that was the end of that segment. That was your back issues. Not people. You don't broke it down for everybody that know a lot about you, but now we're finna go into your hotkeys. Yeah. Yeah, them hotkeys right there. We gonna get into that. But being to comics, you know what hotkeys is. It's special issues, you want people to or yourself to get that it's like on the number ones or first appearances and stuff like that. And in music, DJs, they use the hotkeys, to play a certain point of a song during a certain part of the a party or the club or whatever, or a certain song during a certain moment. But on this show, we're using the hotkeys to put out certain topics or certain subjects or items, you want people to know about you. So I got a couple of things that, you done told me that you want to talk about that we're going to, talk about on the show. And the first one I got for you, I can't say the name though, but can you explain the rise and fall of your Triceratops with the heart-shaped band title? the
Mojo Ceratops?
Yeah, Mojo Ceratops. Yeah, the rise and fall.
The rise and fall of my band?
Yeah. Yeah. How did y'all get together? And like, what?
Oh, okay. Well, when I was in, I think I was still in music college when I met Bob Melpignano, who's my guitar player in that band. And he was advertising, looking for a bass player for his band called Purple Planet. So we used to have a newspaper in Boston called The Phoenix, which was free. And there were ads in the back for musicians, which were very cheap to put in, very small print. So I was looking for a band, and I called him up, and he sent me a cassette tape through the postal service in the mail, and I listened to it, and I was like, it's pretty good. It was progressive pop rock. It was kind of like Rush meets the Bangles. I don't know if either of those acts mean anything to you, but yeah, and musically, I was looking for something a little more progressive and challenging, but there was one song on it that just had this absolutely killer chord change. It was beautiful. It was like just the end of a song. And, if a song has a really good ending, that can be so powerful. And just, I can even, what was it called? Love and Glory. You probably remember it. It was just so tasty. I was like, that's really good. That was the hook that got me to call him and say, hey, I'd like to audition for your band. So I knew I was in if I wanted, not to boast, but I could play this music. And so I guess I met him and ended up joining the band. I auditioned. They hadn't found anyone who was on my level, I guess, because I was still in Berkeley at that point. I was playing all the time and playing really some complicated stuff and writing really, I was listening to Return to Forever, really complicated music. So I joined that band, and then in 1991, we weren't really good. We had some success. We got a little bit on local small radio, but a friend of mine said she was moving to Japan to teach English, which was a big thing those days. And for some reason, she talked me into going with her. So I left and spent 6 months in Japan, which was an amazing experience. Had nothing, no work lined up, no housing lined up. It was the craziest thing I'd ever done in my life. I have no idea how. I wouldn't have done it on my own, but she was like, come on, we can do this. I'm like, okay. And she was a friend too, not a girlfriend, although I wanted her to be one. And years later, we tried dating, but it didn't quite work. We're still friends. But So that's a whole other story. The comic scene over there is pretty interesting. People would throw out comic books. There'd be a pile of 10,000 manga. There's no exact on the street corner once a week on trash day. So I would just like grab a stack, take them home, look, and never had to buy any. People leave them on the trains and in laundromats, and then like, these are cool. Okay, keep these, throw these out. Pretty soon I didn't have room for my collection. So now I'm tearing out stories that I like and throwing out the rest of the book. And then I'm mailing them back to myself in America because there's still too much. I still have room. I only bought like a couple of comic books there. But I moved back to the States, and Bob gave me a call, and he's like, hey, remember we jammed with this drummer one time before I left the country? He's like, you want to play with this guy again? I'm like, okay. Next thing I know, we're a band. Fusion trio. We call ourselves M3 because there were three of us, and our last names all started with the letter M. And, you know, we stayed together for a long time. I joined another band also playing world pop music, kind of like Peter Gabriel, Santana stuff, much more commercial, which was a real ego lesson because I had to play less. I had to learn how to appreciate using more space and not be a maximalist and like play what are called whole notes, where you play one beat, one note, and then three beats pass by before you play another. You know, it's like 1, 2, a ballad bass lines like that. But you know, we had some music that had some space in it, and I didn't have to be going, you know, all the time. And I was like, this music is good. I like playing less also. Plus it's a break because it gets tiring playing the lickety split stuff all the time. You know, it's good to slow down. And that was great music. And we almost had real commercial success until the band fell apart because of interpersonal conflicts that I didn't even know were going on. Like the drummer's like, I'm quitting unless the keyboardist is fired because I don't think it's professional enough. I'm like, what? What's going on here? We had a single released in France. We were filling the Middle East Club on a Saturday night in Cambridge, which was like the big gig in town. It was like packing it. You know, we were ready to launch. I mean, commercial potential, but the music didn't insult your intelligence, and then it all just disappeared. And the singer was like, well, I'm working on some stuff. And then he's like, well, I'm moving to Florida. I'm like, oh. This is where my guitar ended up moving, which is why my band exists only on paper now. Many years later, we continued with the trio, and we took a little break and had a parting of ways with our drummer. We could never find a replacement for him that would last. And eventually we ended up working with him again. He kind of got his stuff together. And but then my guitar player couldn't afford to live here anymore in Boston. He had 5 kids, and just too expensive. He sold this tiny little 25 by 25 foot house in Pembroke, which way the burbs, and bought a big house in Florida for the money on the same day for him and his wife and 5 kids. He's like, sorry, man, I got to go. I'm like, oh, okay. We're in the middle of an album, which we still haven't finished recording. We are going to finish it. I swear it'll be released. And we have other, you know, we're going to keep making music together, but just through the internet. And I'll put together another band eventually. But I promised myself I'd finish that album before I do that. I'm kind of dragging my heels on it. But it got to, you know, when he moved away, it was pretty depressing. It made me like just going to stop playing music for a while. It was really heartbreaking. He had to do it. I'm not angry at him. I don't blame him. But it was challenging. And then the pandemic, you know, it was like couldn't gig. Not that I had a band, but I mean, I could have put one together 3 years ago. And I had done a little solo stuff and play with some other people, and I was going to do more of that. But it's just, you know, not safe to go outside for a few years.
Yeah.
Put things on hold musically. As I was alluding to earlier, you know, it's like I'm feeling my age, and I'm like, my goal is I really want to archive. I wrote 300 pieces of music in the last few decades. Not all good, but some of it's pretty darn good, if I say so myself. You can hear some on my YouTube channel, my band's YouTube channel. And I sent you a link to something, I think.
Yeah.
My solo things. I really want to archive all my art and music online because that's my legacy. I'm going to leave that behind. It sounds egotistical, but that's just like, well, this is what I've contributed to the world. And some people have spoken very highly of it, and I know it's good. You know, I'm as good as anyone else, or not everyone else, and I think this stuff deserves to be, you know, heard. And I know that as soon as I die, people are going to be like, that guy was such a genius. Oh my God, too bad we didn't like pay him to play and buy his comics while he was living. But now we can get it all for free. And it's not about the money. I mean, I was at a convention selling my books. We have a con in Boston called MICE, the Massachusetts Independent Comics Expo, which my groups, the Boston Comics Roundtable, formed. It's indie comics, you know. I'm behind our group's table selling my books, and I've got a little flyer taped to the wall with a link to where you can read them for free online. And this cat comes up to me and he goes, "You're selling your comics, but you're also giving them away for free on the internet. How does that business model work exactly?" I thought about it. I said, you know, society punishes you for being poor in so many ways already. You know, you don't have enough money in the bank. Your bank takes what you have and says, "Okay, now you owe us money." It's like, huh? It's like, yeah, well, you only had $20 in there, and so you fell below the minimum. So now you owe us $36. And now it's $300. And now it's go away.
It just adds up.
So I'm like, people can't afford to buy my $10 trade paperback or whatever it was. That's not, it's $25. It's 150 pages. But, you know, I want them to be able to read it even if they don't have money, because maybe they'll be able to afford to buy a copy later. Maybe they'll tell a friend of theirs about it who will be able to afford to buy a copy, or maybe they'll tell their friends about it. Someone will buy a copy, but I'm more interested in having people read it. And you're a storyteller. You want people to hear your stories. And that sounds egotistical too. Honestly, I'm really humble. I'm here to blow my own horn, so I'm trying to. I'm generally quite an introvert in real life, but that's why my never mind. I had a tattooing career briefly, but I'm just not a hustler, and you have to be a hustler to be a tattoo artist, and that's why that didn't work out. I just couldn't do it that much customer service thing.
Yeah.
But comics, here's the thing about why I'm doing more comics than music right now. You can do comics on your own. You know, I mean, I can do music on my own too, but it's nice to have a real drummer instead of having to use a drum machine. There's no comparison. You know, a drum machine won't slow down and speed up when you glare at it or encourage it. Like, faster, slower. I really love working with real. I mean, I can be happy making music. I play a lot of instruments. I could do a solo album, play everything on it like people do these days, program the drums, whatever. And I will do that, but I really hope I get to have another band again, you know, one day. There's so many great musicians in this city to work with.
Going back to your comic, Punk Rock Alien Space Girl Adventures. What made you pick that title? That's a long title. And what made you want to do that? Yeah. But hey, this is what manga does now. Manga titles are just as long. So hey, you know, maybe you was on something.
Punk Rock Alien Space Girl Adventures. Oops, God. My camera is mirroring everything, so everything I do feels opposite, and I can't get things where I want. Yeah. What made me come up with a title? It just popped into my head. It's kind of like, sounds like Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. Is that too long a title? It's the same number of syllables, I think.
Just about.
I remember. Yeah, I remember when that was a cute little independent black and white comic that I saw at a comic convention in the 80s, I guess. I'm like, oh, that's funny. And then there was radioactive adolescent ninja hamsters or something. No, black belt hamsters. There were a bunch of comics with similar titles. That I think the title to the Turtles was inspired by the New Teen Titans. I think they were kind of playing off that a little bit. They had the word teen in there. It was popular in those days. Yeah, I had been working on a different comic before this one, a lesbian vampire romance thing. And I just was developing it with my girlfriend at the time. I don't know. I just never, I guess I just kind of lost interest in it or couldn't take it anywhere. And then shortly after that, it was 2004, I came up with this character. And, oh, you're sharing your screen. Yeah. And she looks like the character from the previous comic, except I decided I wanted to do something. You know, I grew up reading superhero comics, and I love them, and I still love them. I don't actually buy any anymore. I used to draw a lot of fanzine. I did my training in drawing fanzine stories and comic stuff. And I realized I love drawing really colorful, like literally colorful characters. I have zero interest in drawing them punching each other or stopping bank robbers or terrorists. You know, I would like to draw superheroes on their day off, going to the laundromat and having pizza and just talking shop with their superhero friends. But I want to draw all the action stuff. So that's kind of where I was thinking when I started this book. And I don't know, I drew this character, and maybe I drew her face, and I'm like, there's something here. Came up with the title, and I thought this would make a great, like, this phrase is going to make me sound old, Saturday morning cartoon. In other words, animated series. They used to show them on Saturday mornings. I gather they don't anymore. But so I thought this would be a cool idea for an animated series. And I wrote a theme song for it. It's kind of punky, sort of sounds like the Ramones, and you can hear it on my YouTube. It's fun. Punk rock, alien, space girl adventures. I wrote this song, I recorded it, and I'm like, that's cool. And then I just sat on the idea for a while. And then I started attending these meetings of the Boston Comics Roundtable and getting into doing comics. And I did a little bit of stuff, but I thought I really should do something with that idea. I don't have any stories. So I took the lyrics from the song and I just made a 3-page comic out of that. Each lyric became a panel, which is, not traditional comic where people are talking to each other. There's no dialogue in it. There's one brief exchange where somebody calls the guitar player a poser because he's not punk enough or whatever. But other than that, it's just the lyrics illustrated. And I showed that to my friends, and they all really dug it. And I noticed especially women looked at the first panel of Susie and said, she looks cool. I really want to read about her. And I thought, I can't let them down. I have to do this book to make sure it's good. And I really like cheesecake, but I'm also a feminist, so I had to try to balance that. Which when you're a guy can be challenging. When you're a man and you're a feminist, it's still possible to get things wrong. So I ran the scripts by my ex-girlfriend, which she's still my girlfriend. I know we've broken up, but we're still best friends, just to make sure. She only made me change a couple of little things here and there. And I started thinking, okay, I got to write scripts. What am I going to do? So I started thinking about all the things that had happened to me as a musician. And I started writing down every gig I could remember where things were interesting. And, we played well, they loved us, they paid us well. That's great. And that happened. They didn't pay us well, but that's boring. But the gigs where things went wrong are interesting, and that makes better stories. And so all the music stories in here, the first issue, I think, is the first one. She doesn't put her band together until the second issue where she gets a parking ticket. And U2 drops by the club after they get off stage and they didn't get to see her band because they were put on earlier than they were supposed to be. All that really happened to me. And then she goes to City Hall to fight the parking ticket, and this guy yanks her chain about it. And I don't want to spoil the whole thing. You can read it for free online. But that entire thing, I could turn it into a story and tell it on the Moth, I suppose. But I just put it into my comic, and I got a bunch more of those. And most of the rest of it I just made up. She has a lot of weird dreams, which gives me a chance to have fun drawing surreal stuff and not worry about accurate realism, because in dreams things can be pretty wiggly. Here's my kitty cat. And also in the dream sequences, I had this idea, which in one of her first dreams is kind of a play on Little Nemo, which is a dream comic from like the early 1900s. And I thought, oh, what if, she's like he was a kid who dreams like his bed gets legs and starts walking and then weird stuff happens. So I kind of parodied that. I thought, what if I make it look like that style? So I introduced what these call Ben-Day dots, where you see the color dots in comics. Halfway through the panel, it fades into that. And I'm like, okay, but then she goes to a planet that looks like The Little Prince, which is a watercolor children's book. So I'm like, okay, let me imitate that style. I thought, and the dream sequences could be really different styles. Oops, censored for Facebook. Which is a thing I really haven't. I have one dream that's pencil art. I colored it digitally like I do the rest of the book, but I didn't ink it. So that's fun to be able to do different styles. And I've had ideas to do like a fumetti one maybe, where I could get, and I got to get some woman to paint herself green, but I have a Barbie doll with pink hair that I painted green, and I made her a little bass guitar. I thought, I could do like photo sequence for dreams, because now I have to make a robot doll, but maybe I'll get around to doing that. So I wrote a bunch of stuff, and I have 20 issues scripted, and I've drawn 10 of them. I have 10 more. I'm working on the 11th one. And I have an end, but it's a happy open end. I could continue it if I get more ideas. And I came up with some, but it would involve things becoming less happy because that makes it interesting. So it's like, I don't want to spoil the end of the series, but you know, it's not like the end of Seinfeld, everyone gets arrested. I thought that was brilliant. I don't know, I only saw like 3 episodes of that show, but I thought that's great. There have been some TV shows with interesting endings. Comic books, often they just end because the creator dies, or the series, usually it's the series gets canceled if it's a major publisher. And I thought, well, you know, what happens if I die? You know, I mean, I'm going to eventually, I suppose. I'm hoping not to. My plan is to live forever. So far, so good. But I can't count on that, really. And I like these characters to have a happy ending. So I wrote one for them. But, I mean, their lives would have to get more interesting because they're basically kind of settled onto a acceptable plateau of lifestyle by the end of the series. That's not too much of a spoiler. You know, nobody dies. It's not Game of Thrones in space. You know, I mean, there's one robot is going to meet a grisly end soon, but not a favored one. He's a bad guy. That's a spoiler. Well, there's some bad robots in this series. But yeah, I don't want to be in a position of like John Byrne did a run on She-Hulk that was really good and really funny. And I guess it was inspiration for the TV show, which I haven't seen but want to. And then he left the book because he said he didn't have any more ideas. And whatever you think about John Byrne, I have mixed feelings about him as a person and an artist. He's done some great stuff. But I thought that was so honorable. It's like, okay, because he was getting a good paycheck. He could have kept milking that, but he didn't want to just go through the motions and crank it out. It's like, maybe someone else has better ideas they can do for this character, and I'll go do something else, you know. And I don't want to just crank it out because people want to buy it if I don't have good ideas, you know. So, and I kind of, I wrote a bunch of stuff, and I'm like, well, I haven't had an idea in a while. Like, it's okay, because I'm going to be 80 years old before I finish drawing this. What am I worried about? Running out of ideas. I'm such a slow artist. I'm able to produce 1 page a week, full color. I can't really work. I can work a little faster than that if I don't work outside the house. During the early days of the pandemic when I wasn't working much, I got way ahead of my estimated schedule. I thought I'll be 80 years old before I finish drawing all these scripts. That was my estimate based on how much work I was able to produce at the time. I've gone a little faster in some ways. I'm way ahead of that schedule. I'm halfway through it. But I don't want to rush it, but I have this real dichotomy of wanting to draw every brick and make every curl of her hair be a perfect arc. At the same time, I think of myself as a lazy artist because I'm like, okay, I drew a TV and I'm going to reuse that drawing of a TV in the background rather than draw another TV.
Dang, people do it all the time. Yeah, people do it all
That's
the
the time saver. And like, I used to feel like that is cheating. Draw the TV again. I'm like, no, because if I have to draw it from a different angle, then okay. But I'm going to save that TV and I'll reuse that one next time I need to have the TV at that angle. Like, she's got all these posters on her bedroom wall. And like, the first time I drew them, the second panel, I started to redraw them. And I said, wait a minute, how many times am I going to do this? Because she's going to be in this room a lot. So I just drew each poster as an individual illustration, and then I just shrink them, and you can skew them and move them around depending on the size of the wall, how far close up you are. And so part of me feels like it's cheating, but I'm like, ain't nobody got time for that, right? I'm not getting any younger, so I try not to cut corners. But I just finished coloring a page where I drew every brick, but I also drew a brick wall, which I will sometimes recycle, just like a sheet of Zipatone, which was the sheet of dots we used to use for shading, where you would cut it out with a knife. If you wanted a shadow under someone's chin that was gray and not black, you would cut out a piece of this self-adhesive film and stick it on your art, and you take a knife and you cut off the pieces you don't want and peel them off. And it was not a super high-tack thing. You could take it off and stick it back on. If you look at old original comic art, you'll see that stuff. It turns yellow over time. I still have some of that stuff. I found a bunch of it and I scanned it. And I used the scans of it rather than using the actual stuff. So I'm getting my money's worth. I feel bad, but the company went out of business a long time ago, so I don't feel like that bad. I'm getting more than my money's worth out of the Zipatone I bought back in the 80s and 90s. People still use it. Tone film's got different names. I think Zipatone was a brand name like Frigidaire or Xerox. But and then the first time I used those dots, I was like, now it looks like comics. I was so happy. It's like I hadn't had any dots in my comic. That's what I grew up with. So I'm like, yeah, I put shading on the side of a building. I'm like, oh, dots. Yeah, I miss the dots. Up until, oh, God, sometime in the 90s, like, I guess it was Image Comics, people started using computers to color comics. And you couldn't see the dots anymore. This was a paradigm shift. And suddenly everything looked like heavy metal with this airbrush coloring instead of dots. That was a big change. And I used to color my comics with watercolor markers, which looks very nice, but doesn't scan that well. And you get overlap. And I was like digitally trying to fix it. And I'm like, then someone gave me a copy of Photoshop for free, a legit copy, because he upgraded. He was like, here, you can have this one. Here's the number you have to type into your computer so you can use it, verification code or whatever. Like, wow, this is good. I always wanted to be an airbrush artist. Now I don't have to have a compressor under my desk and wear a respirator and clean out the machine. I mean, I actually had one, which my sister bought to use on makeup, but she jammed it up with makeup and then gave it to me, and I never got it to work. But I know people who use it, you know, and it's like kids today have no idea how easy they have it with Photoshop. And I've got a Wacom tablet here. Here's my airbrush. It's just
easy.
I don't have a you know, you would cut out with a knife a thing called a frisket to cover up the bits you didn't want the paint to go on. That's a lot of work, man. Now it's just a layer in Photoshop. Okay, mask layer. I don't actually know how those work, but I find my way around. I get it to do everything I need it to do. Once in a while, I learn a new trick. Oh, God, I was in this Facebook group for comic book artists, and I posted something, just a comment on somebody's post, and someone else said, well, don't you know this thing you can do? I'm like, what? I wasted 20 years carefully erasing the overpainting from the edge of this thing, and all I had to do was select that area and then shrink it by 1 pixel, and then I could clean out the halo. Oh my God.
Yeah,
the bucket fell in. I didn't know you could do that.
Yeah.
Wow, it changed my life.
Yeah.
And that was amazing. And actually, I had that same effect on somebody else once. I was at a convention, and there's this artist, oh God, what's his name? Don Parisi, who did this beautiful black and white pencil cheesecake vampire art. Just gorgeous, really lush shading and stuff. And he was using his finger to do all this shading. It looked like airbrush, you know, gorgeous, smooth stuff. And I assumed he was using a stump, which is a rolled up piece of paper you can use to smudge pencil art. And he had never heard of one. He didn't know about these things. You're not using a stump? And I happen to have one with me, so I gave it to him. I demonstrated it. He was like, you changed my life. It's like, this guy was already a professional, world-class artist. And like, I commissioned a drawing from him, and it was the first one he used that tool on, which he wrote on it. I still have it. It's a cheesecake picture of Starfire in lingerie, I admit. But it's like, this is my first stump drawing. Thanks so much. It's like, wow, really nice. I love sharing knowledge. And it was nice that when you can have a positive impact on somebody's life in a major way, one little thing can, you know, it's going to save me hours and hours of time just because I knew this one trick. Because I never looked at the instructions on Photoshop. I actually have a book on the shelf on how to use it, but I haven't really cracked it open. I like to figure stuff out on my own. I can do everything I can, but once in a while you get one of these time-saving tips. Holy cow. But there aren't any more. I think I'm out of time-saving tips. I used to hand letter. I hand lettered the first 9 issues of this series. And I knew about digital lettering as an option, believe me. It's funny, speaking of John Byrne, I remember I was in a comic book shop and I'm looking at an issue, I think it was Next Men, which John Byrne drew. And he lettered. He has his own style of lettering, which was recognizable. And I was looking at it and going, every S is identical. He made a font out of his own handwriting. Wow. It's like the first time I realized that was a thing. But I like hand lettering. It's very labor intensive, but I like, it gives you a lot of options, freedom. But they're all there in the digital too. So I finally made a font out of my own handwriting. I paid $8 for this program, Calligrapher. It's called, spelled funny. And you can get a free version of it, but you have more option to customize it if you give them $8. It's worth it. You know, it's still a little funky, my font. Sometimes there's one space. It's a little too much space between 2 letters, but I suppose we tweak it.
Yeah,
it's my handwriting.
Yeah, it gives a value though, right?
I lettered 3 issues in one day. I'm like, oh crap.
Ooh.
Okay, I'm never going back to hand lettering because it's very slow. I mean, and also, you know, your hand starts to cramp up after, you know, all this hand. And I was moving text around because I'll be like, you know what? I want to see the top of her head and there's a word there. Okay, so in Photoshop, I'm going to move that word over here. And I was spending more and more time moving words around, words that I'd written with a pen on paper. And I'm like, if this was a text file, it'd be a lot quicker just to move those letters around or correct a spelling error. So I finally caved and sold out. Now I'm a digital letterer, but I still draw my word balloons by hand, and they're very funky shaped. Sometimes they're perfect ovals, but I'm like, I would hand letter first and then draw in whatever space was left over, which is still kind of my approach. But now I digitally letter first, and then I draw in whatever space is left over. Occasionally, the words take over. I try not to make more than a third of a panel be words, and I like wordless panels. But, you know, you get married to those words when you're the writer, and you don't want to give any of them up. I don't have to because I can just make another panel. But that's labor intensive, too, because I'm like, I write a script, and then I'm like, how much? I break it up into panels. Like, Susie says hi, Kasha says hi, Susie says, how was your day? Kasha says, terrible. Okay, I can get those first 3 exchanges into one panel, but when Kasha says terrible, her facial expression has got to change. So now I need a new panel. So that's my approach to breaking down a script into panels. But I will try to jam as much as I can into one panel because I'm lazy and I don't want to have to draw another panel if I can avoid it.
But yeah, hey, that was your hotkeys, man. Like you giving so much knowledge. Hopefully, you know, people take some of your for real. Like the paper thing you said, flip it over. That really stuck with me. I going to use that because I'm trying to draw myself. I'm never gonna be no professional artist, but I can probably critique my work better now by flipping a page over.
Yeah, no, big help. Yeah. Drawing is such a joy. Even if you just do it to make yourself happy. It's such a great thing. Kids, every kid is an artist. And then at some point, some of them stop. And I don't know why, but all kids draw, right?
Yeah.
Some of them just keep at it.
Yeah. But hey, we got to the end part of the show.
Okay.
I'm gonna hit you with one question. This is called digging in the crates, and of course, digging the crates is you getting that vinyl out, the CD. You're digging through it. You want that nostalgia, or a comic book. You're digging through the comic books. What you got to your left, digging through those, trying to get your that one issue out. But this is the one question people gonna remember. You from like you did Nobel Peace Prize or something like that. And that question is, I'm gonna take you back to 1991, right? So it's your time. You telling about your band and all that stuff and whatnot. So somebody came up to you was like, okay, you can get a record deal, or you can be in this new comic book company we got called Image Comics. You can be one of our artists and writers. Which one you will pick? You would pick the deal with your band, or you would pick the deal with Image Comics?
Okay, well, at that point in time, I definitely would have said the record company because we didn't know any better. And I wouldn't have thought I was a good enough artist in 1991. When I just got back from Japan. I was okay, I was getting there, but I didn't consider myself professional. But I had a degree in music, and I was definitely a professional musician at that point. I could have joined almost any band in the world. Okay. Jumped right in, not to boast, but that's as Jaco Pastorius said, it ain't hype if you can back it up. He was one of the greatest bass players in the world. And one of my teachers studied with him, not under him, but with him. Like he met him at a club and they started talking and just comparing notes and jamming and stuff.
Okay, so. Cool. Well, hey man, thanks for coming on the show, man. I enjoyed it. I mean, you gave me a lot of stuff to think on because you gave me a different tangent on different ways of thinking. Like I don't know, like I had a lot of Jewish. Another thing that stuck to me. I had a lot of Jewish friends, and you made a point that I never really heard them call themselves white. So you made a point by saying that. So yeah, that stuck to me. I had to go back and think about that. But
I know a bunch of black Jews too.
I know, but I mean, just you. I mean, I know that part,
Yeah.
but just you. But me and my white friends that was Jews, I never heard them really call themselves white. So that was the thing. I was like, dang, he right.
Yeah. If we, if we weren't white enough for, you know, to not be prejudiced, murdered by the millions, you know, not that long ago.
Yeah.
We ain't white enough to be white now, so screw that title.
Yeah.
I'm not religious at all. I mean, I'm very spiritual, but I'm not observant at all.
That's cool. But where can people find your book at or follow you? And if they, you know, intrigued by what you said today, they can follow you and get more about you and buy your book.
Yeah, if you Google Punk Rock Alien Space Girl Adventures, you will find me. I'm on Instagram, I'm on Facebook, I'm on DeviantArt. I have a Patreon, patreon.com/James Mobius, where for $1 a month you can access over 5,300 illustrations and about 7 songs. I'll get more music on there eventually that I've done, including all the thumbnails and pencil sketches. And I got 50 sketchbooks and a lot of paintings. I still have to scan some, photograph some of those. I'm easy to find online. I don't hide. Yeah.
Okay. All right, man.
Thank you so much, man.
Thanks for being on the show, man. Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
All right.
I guess you already knew the viewer was going to come back to the podcast. You know, he doing that whole T-Rex. But you know, this has been Chill the Green Box with Specs Thompson and The View from Legacy The View. And you want to read more of his stories, go check out LegacyView.com or follow him at Legacy View on all social media. And make sure you give us a follow as well at Chill the Green Box on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram. And if you want to be on our show, contact us via social media or email at chillthegreenbox@gmail.com. And make sure you support James. And if you get a guitar from him, get a book for him, or get some artwork for him at least. You know, do something, support him. Support all, I guess. You know it, be easy, man. And oh yeah, follow me at SPECKS706.